There's this feeling that's with you pretty much every moment of every day. It's so basic, so fundamental, we hardly ever notice it. It's that quiet, constant hum in the background of your mind that just says, I am. Well, today, we're going to pull that feeling apart and see what it's really made of. So let me ask you a question, right here, right now. Who are you? A name probably pops into your head, right? Maybe a job title, your role as a parent or a friend. But let's go a level deeper. Underneath all those labels, there's a more basic feeling, isn't there? It's this raw sense of being. And it feels like the very foundation of who we are. Solid, permanent, absolutely real. But what if it isn't? What if that solid rock is actually more like a flickering flame? That's the rabbit hole we're diving into. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with how we usually think about I am. Then we're going to jump in a time machine and go back to its ancient roots to see what we've been missing. We'll put the two side by side to really see the difference, and then we'll get into why seeing am as a verb might just change everything. Okay, first up, the constant I am. We all feel that, right? That steady internal nod that confirms our own existence. But is it really the solid foundation we assume it is? Let's find out. To really dig into this, we've got to go right to the source, ancient Pali texts. And our first step is to just look at a straightforward modern translation. What the dictionary says. Let's see what that gets us. All right, so the key Pali term we're looking at is Asmīti. On the surface, the definition seems pretty simple. It's the feeling, the idea, that underlying gut sense of I am. It's that basic conviction that you exist. Seems pretty straightforward so far, right? And this isn't just some abstract philosophical term. It shows up in really, really human ways in these texts. Take this phrase, seyo hamasmiti. It translates directly to I am better, the raw language of comparison. And this is where it gets really interesting. The texts show that this feeling of I am is never just neutral. It's the engine that drives comparison. The second we solidify that sense of I, we just can't help but measure it against others. I am better, I am the same, or I'm worse. It's this constant and, let's be honest, kind of exhausting mental math we're always doing. So this modern dictionary translation paints a picture of I am as a solid fact. It treats it like a known, a fixed, concrete self that just is. But what if that translation, while not wrong, is missing something huge? What if it's only half the story? Which brings us to our next section where we go deeper than the dictionary. We're going to dig into the ancient root of the word. Because while that first translation is accurate, it's also incomplete. It misses this incredible nuance that's been hiding in the original language all along. And that leads us to the big question of this whole explainer. Is I am a statement of fact, something you are? Or is it a process, something that happens? And here it is. This is the key that unlocks the whole thing. A passage from an ancient text gives us this massive clue. It says the feeling I am comes to be because of clinging. Just think about that for a second. It doesn't just exist by itself. It arises because of a specific condition. And this right here, this is the shift that changes the entire picture. On the left, you've got the modern idea. I am, a noun, a fixed state, like a brick. But on the right, you see what the ancient meaning is really pointing to. An I aming occurs. It's not a noun at all. It's a verb. It's a process, like a wave forming in the ocean, actively happening from moment to moment. So the most important point here is this. That solid self you feel, it isn't something you are. It's something that happens. It's a fleeting event in the mind, constantly being generated. It's not a thing. It's an action. Now, I get it. This whole shift from a noun to a verb can feel a little abstract. So let's make it visual. And thankfully, the ancient teachers were brilliant at this. They used these amazing metaphors to make these big ideas totally concrete. First up, let's think about a mirror. When you see your reflection, where exactly is it? Is that reflection a thing that lives inside the glass? No way. Could it exist without the mirror or without you standing there? Of course not. The reflection isn't a solid thing at all. It's a phenomenon that only appears when all the right conditions, you, the mirror, the light, come together. And that's a perfect metaphor for the feeling of I am. It's just like that reflection. It's not some solid entity inside you.
It's an image that appears in the mind, and it is completely dependent on your body, your feelings, your thoughts. Without those things for the mind to grab onto, the reflection we call I simply doesn't show up.
Okay, if the mirror analogy didn't quite click for you, here's another incredible one from the texts. Imagine a lute or a guitar. Now let me ask you a simple question. Where does the sound come from? Seriously, if you had to go find the sound, where would you even look? Is the sound in the wood? Nope. Is it hiding in the strings? Or in the hollow part of the body? Maybe it's in the pick? Or in the musician's fingers? No. You could take that lute apart piece by piece, down to the last atom, and you will never, ever find a thing called sound. Because the sound isn't a thing at all. It's a process. It's this beautiful, temporary event that arises only when all the parts and the conditions work together in just the right way. It has absolutely no independent existence. And that is a brilliant illustration of the self. The feeling I am is just like the sound of that lute. It's not some solid, findable thing inside of you. It's a temporary harmony that arises when your body, your mind, and your senses all work together. It's a process you experience, not a thing you own. Okay, so am is a verb, it's a process. But so what? Why does this philosophical shift actually matter in our real, everyday lives? What's the takeaway here?
Well, it actually changes everything. The moment you start to really see I am as a fleeting process, that whole exhausting game of comparison we talked about, I am better, I am worse, it just starts to run out of gas. Why? Because there's no solid, permanent I to put on the scale anymore. That constant, stressful need to protect and defend this fixed idea of me just starts to dissolve because you see it for what it is, a beautiful but temporary show.
And so I'll leave you with this question to think about. If that deep feeling of I am isn't a permanent truth, but a temporary process, like a reflection in a mirror or the sound from a lute, what do you think would happen if you stopped trying to hold on to it so tightly and instead you just watched it happen?